like to call to order for the regular meeting of the governing body, the Planning and Zoning Commission for June the 13th. Tia, would you do the invocation, please?
Glad to.
We'll call your meeting.
Just let the mayor call our
We'll call to order the special meeting of the Navasota City Council at 6 p.m. in council chambers. All council members are present.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I forgot. P&Z doesn't do it, so.
Item 3, remarks of visitors with City Council.
No, sir.
None. Okay.
So that proceeds to item number 4, conduct a joint City Council Planning and Zoning Commission workshop discussing the property described, proposed residential townhome development by Bogus Development LLC for the property legally described as 203 Veterans Memorial Drive, Navasota, Texas 77868. The property affected is legally described as A0046J Moore, tract 58, acres 14.985.
And I'll repeat that, or say ditto.
Mayor, Council, and P&Z. Jason Weeks, your city manager. Right now, Lupe and I both will tag team on this. Just kind of give you a brief history. The property we're talking about, it's on Veterans Memorial Drive there at August Horse. It is behind the Grimes County Annex. So Grimes County Annex is nearly the whole property through there is 14 acres. And we're talking about the vacant property that's behind it. And so right at 7 acres. The county, several months ago, decided they wanted to sell that property. They went out for an RFP process. They hired a realtor, Dr. Max Brand, and Dr. Max Brand, along with the county, started taking bids. Went through a process, and they had a bid with Bogus Development. Bogus Development LLC is wishing to develop that property. And the reason we're having actually my first joint P&Z council meeting since being here is because it's a unique situation where there's things that need to happen. The developer wishes for this property to be within the city limits, wishes to gain utilities and have city services. However, the property right now is, like I said, is outside the city limits, and the county is not wishing to move forward with having it fully annexed into the city and having any zone change done to that property. And so the idea was to bring the two groups together that are actually going to be making those decisions in the future and have a developer come and present what his plans are to give him feedback. There is a contract. I think the contract has been signed by the county. And however, there's a couple steps that we need to do before closing. And so we've had several meetings with our legal counsel, city's legal counsel, the county attorney, as well as the judge and the developer, and trying to lay all this out and tee it up so that both P&Z council and the county and the developer could all come together and have some discussions about what it's going to look like and how we would move forward. And so the plan is to build around 64 townhome units in this development. Townhomes is something we really don't have here at what we call market rate townhomes. And so knowing that there's a need for this, it was a great opportunity to have a developer come in and work really close with them. So it's something that staff is excited about. However, we're only a small piece of it. Y'all are the decision makers, y'all are the policy makers, and so we wanted to bring this to y'all so the developer could get up and explain to you what his plans are, have Lupe talk to you about some of the requirements and stuff that we've met with the developer about, and try to iron out any of those type things that you might see as obstacles that he needs to cross over. And then that gives him an idea of moving forward, whether, hey, this contract's we're not going to be able to close on this, or P&Z and council are full board in support of this, other than going through the motions of what we need to do for public hearings. And so tonight's just kind of a workshop to have those discussions. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Philip Vargas from Vargas Development to come up and present to y'all. And then on the screen here, you might not be able to see it really closely, but he'll kind of walk through what we're looking at here. Philip.
So good evening, Philip Vargas with Vargas Development. So what this layout shows 64 30-foot wide lots, which are for townhomes, so there'll be attached product. The buildings you see are actually the same buildings that I'm doing on another project in College Station. It's nice and uniform to where the developer or the builder can come in, be very efficient with this building, which is going to help keep our costs down, which is really the goal here, is to have affordable homes for young families, professionals, city employees, teachers, things like that. So the layout here is without the benefit of a survey. So it's, I'm an engineer, so it's a little crude for my personal like, but I'm get a survey next week. We'll have surveys on site next week, assuming this meeting goes the way I hope it goes. And what we intend to do is we've got some utilities to extend on the east side under what used to be some tennis courts. We have water and sewer and gas, all city services that we'll bring out here. That'll also kind of help, this property around it. The large piece is for sale now too. So that'll kind of help if anybody's interested in buying that to develop, get some services out there. We've had a preliminary meeting with Lupe and the engineering department. So I have an idea of what needs to be done, but until we get it surveyed, run all of our modeling that goes through, I don't really know what they are today. I just kind of have my estimates. So, anything else I'm missing?
I think that's it. Lupe, you want to kind of tee it up on some of the documents that they have before them?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, Planning and Zoning Commission. Probably the biggest, number one, I want to highlight the variation on the provided document is we wrote in there 45 to 50. Those weren't notated on this rendering, but I did confirm with Philip right before the meeting that's actually supposed to be 30 foot. So to accommodate those individual dwellings, essentially it's a fourplex, right? It's a fourplex townhome. So every unit itself has its own property lines, and so those are actually 30 foot wide. And so in the future, Vargas Development, when they submit their PUD zoning request, the minimum lot size will be 30 for this particular development to accommodate those fourplexes that can be sold individually. And the other items, applicable development standards, those are just standard requirements that apply to any new residential or even commercial development when you're subdividing land and providing lots for multiple purchasers. And then the review discussion comments, this was just a very high level review of what we have. So obviously there's not many comments because as Philip mentioned, it's very rudimentary and just very high level. But we just wanted to provide these list of comments just to show both the council and planning and zoning what Philip is going to be looking at once he begins a review process and what council and planning and zoning will consider during that PUD zoning process. So if you'll have any questions about these comments, about the development, we're more than happy to answer.
Are they one story or two story? I'm just trying to.
Most likely two,
Two.
because we're going to have garages on them to keep as many cars off
Like
the
a
roads.
built-in garage?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I've got BlackRock Builders, Brian McDonald's here with me, so he's who we intend to partner with to build the townhomes.
Okay, yeah, because he's done a lot of work in Navasota.
Lupe, Philip, do you want to talk about what we've talked about, the street and in the circular pattern?
Sure.
Yeah.
And like I said, this drawing was, pretty high level. Once I get the survey, I'll have a real drawing. But what'll happen is these will actually shift to the west to provide a secondary access that wraps around the middle row of buildings for emergency access and sanitation. The county had some built-in deed restrictions that are setbacks off, Veterans Memorial structure would be 30 feet off of there and then 20 around. That's not a problem. The area on the bottom there's that's about what the detention pond would be. This site kind of sits on a ridge, so I might split that detention here and to the north. But again, once I get the survey, I'll be able to make something more real.
What's parking gonna look like? You say you have a garage, a single car garage?
There'll probably be 2-car garages, just because they're basically the same width as the driveway that's on there. So that's the plan.
Yeah, we staff had a really concern about on-street parking. As you can tell, it's all driveways. There's not going to be capability to do a lot of on-street parking at all, unless you block your own drive.
Mm-hmm.
And our parking requirements do require 2 off-street parking spaces, and that's why the driveway is wide enough to accommodate 2 vehicles. The garage is just extra.
Well, so we know of many other developments that say they can hold 2 cars, but it really is just a car to the slab where you fall off into the grass. And I have had a 2-car garage that fit 1 Texas car. So are these real cars that are going in there, or 2 motorcycles, or what's your plan?
It would be a standard garage that you see driving around Pecan Lakes. I mean, we're not doing.
Doesn't fit 2 cars.
It doesn't fit 2 Texas cars, maybe,
Yeah.
but it does fit 2 cars.
Not
Yeah.
2 dualies?
Yeah.
Mr. Roots mentioned market.
That means they're for sale, as far, an individual for sale.
So what would be the
Market rate.
sales price of these?
Great question, because at this moment in our history, it's really hard to know what happens in 9 months with the economy and materials. And so it all kind of starts with, once we get through the due diligence process, the next 90 days with the city and understanding exactly what costs there are, that'll help us establish our lot cost. And then as the builder who is in design on the buildings they want to do, and they get their takeoffs, today, knowing what material is going to be like in 9 months is really hard to.
Square footage. What kind of square footage you looking at?
In the mid-200s as the sales price.
Okay.
Yeah, and so what I was talking about on market rate, so he does not plan to build rentals. These now, however, if a investor purchases from him and then they decide to rent it, then that's a different story. But he's not. His is all for sale.
We wouldn't want to sell to any, there's certain ones we wouldn't want to sell to though, right? The ones that,
That's not going to happen.
those non-profit
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, we'll talk to you about that one.
Mhm.
Can the streets be lit?
Well,
It looks like a box.
it's
It looks like an ugly box.
that's what the site is.
Okay, okay.
And to the question about affordability, the more bins that happen, the higher the price goes, because manholes get added, valves, bins, all that. So that's why you see, in neighborhoods that need to be affordable, that's why you see the straight streets.
So how do you know it needs? I mean,
Because
what
that's
determines
typically,
that? Because, we look around at other developments around, they're all about the same price. So, why would you not consider building $300,000?
we could always price it that way, and if we need to. But I like where your head is, I really do.
No, that we can see the outside of it, and, see what they look like, sort of what's going on in those developments.
Gives you some sample plans too, some floor plans that were.
And then what about, amenities? You know, anything
So the good news about this site is it's directly across the street from 75 acres of city park that would be really good to utilize. And so,
Right across the street.
right, and so kind of our initial discussions is that we'll provide, a crossing, maybe a couple crossings, that are, very noticeable that people are going to be crossing the street right here to go to the city park.
Yeah, like the signage or hash marks or
Yes, sir.
something like that.
And what about the traffic? So, because at certain times of year, especially, there's a lot of traffic out there in the park. You know, at Copper Field and stuff.
There's one way in, one way out.
I know, yeah.
You know, it's been many years since I've been back there on Veterans Memorial. How is that? Because it was really bad years ago.
Streets, you know, I mean, all that
Bad,
I think one day, the property, like I said, I think it's 1,200 acres around it is for sale. And so as that builds out, that'll help us get cross connectivity to the east. So, but that'll just take time.
there's a basketball court.
So I have a question. Jason, you mentioned about the county not particularly wanting to have this annexed.
Yeah, so the thought behind it, so there was a period where you don't have to close. So there's a period where he doesn't have to close. And their thought is, if we go through an annex, get the zone change, we go through all those steps, and he doesn't close, now the county's got property that's been annexed in. Well, we don't, so if it's annexed in, the council doesn't have to de-annex after that process.
So the county's worried about losing land in their bank.
I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what we kind of heard. They're not willing to go 100% that direction.
Can we see a map of what is city limits in that area?
So basically, they want goodwill to planning and zoning and city council and the developer before they let them.
So what they have agreed to, I think we've done, is they're willing to go all the way through P and Z, but not council. So they're willing to take the process through approvals through P and Z, and then wait till closing, and then bring the final step to council for council approval.
And that's why Jason suggests this meeting because, I know no one's going to make a final decision tonight, but if y'all just don't like me or you don't like this idea, then I'll just drop the contract and go find something else to do. But, if there's positive feedback tonight, then, we'll move forward. I've already started the process, so, that was just my risk. But just because I kind of think this product is a good one for the city, but obviously it's up to y'all.
Well, I'll let you know in the several years that I've been on this committee, we've only had 2 projects come that were sort of like this. One was the little domes that everybody poo-pooed on, and the other was the apartment buildings that they were going to put up off of Victoria, and he was going to put several buildings in there, and that took a pretty big hit too. So this seems like a proposal that's a little more palatable to the people that were really negative on those, so I think you got that on your side.
So not as bad as some other deals.
And so how, it sounds like this is not your first, so how many others and where are they?
So as far as townhomes goes, this is my second townhome project, but I've been in development this is my 20th year.
Oh, you don't.
And, sorry. My previous life was with the biggest home builder in the country, and I managed 3 divisions of development. We did 2,000 houses a year, so I've done development from Georgetown to Corpus Christi, and so that's my small, short resume. But.
Are there any restrictions? I mean, this is not like an age-appropriate thing or no children or anything else?
No, so no restrictions like that.
Okay.
No tax credit.
What is the footprint of the buildings? You say you've got a 2-car garage down there, so what's the footprint actually out of these lots are 30 feet wide?
Yes, 30 by about 100, 110.
By about 110?
So you basically have a garage and a front door is on the front, and then behind that, assume kitchen, living, maybe a bath, and then your bedrooms are upstairs?
Right, most likely.
Well, ideally, most bedrooms would be downstairs.
Okay.
There are some plans that we have where all of the 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, and everything is downstairs.
Okay.
What's
And then one
upstairs?
of the plans has 2 bedrooms down.
Additional unit.
So what would be on the second floor then? I got you. Gotcha, okay.
But one unit on a lot.
So the lot is sitting there, it's 30 feet wide, 100, 110 feet long or something like that, and you basically got a concrete apron out front for parking, and then you've got the building, and it's either attached on one side or both sides, and then you've got a little backyard,
That's
a
correct.
little square backyard or something, 30 by 30 or something like that.
That's correct.
Okay.
How wide is this room? I mean, just trying to get a perspective on 30-foot lot. Usually it's not 24 feet.
Got your measuring tape, Dan?
Is that one?
Yeah,
I didn't bring
400
one.
square feet.
Yeah, so,
So, for what?
Walk it off, Lupe.
So on a 60-foot wide door, the metal door is 16 feet wide, at least 20. A single 16 foot.
That's a two-car garage though.
That's a 2-car.
Right.
So you got the two-car garage and a hallway
yes, sir.
to get back to the building, and the living space is in the back of the building. Okay. Is that second story gonna be a full second story or just a partial?
It's like a story and a half. All this upstairs, on some plans, its own bathroom.
Okay.
Most people prefer 1 stories.
Is it your intent to put several different models in there as far as, or is it the fourplex is the same, same fourplex side by side with 4 different models in that fourplex? Even the floor plan, I mean, the square footage on the bottom can be, the square can be the same, but you can have the walls difference.
2 or 3 different floor plans.
I'm just, asking for the aesthetic of the
Yeah, give it some-
commonality of 64 units.
Give it some character by doing.
Yeah, so I think I don't remember which one you showed it yet. It's
a good representation?
Yes.
the farmhouse look, the white look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good indication.
No, man, those are public streets.
No.
So none of the residents would need a riding lawnmower?
They will not.
Yeah.
A weed eater will take care of it.
Weed eater take care of it? Yeah. That would be one very large bedroom if you only had one bedroom upstairs in that building.
Probably
So you're gonna have 4 buildings in a row, each one with 4 units in it. What's the spacing between the units?
I think there's 20 feet required by code. Yeah, that's 20 feet in between the blocks. There'd be a 20 feet wide. I guess we don't have a standard, do you?
It depends if you have windows facing each other, then you need more separation, the 20. If you don't have any windows or anything, then you can get as close as to 7.
Right.
But you'd have some fire code issue with that if you wouldn't you?
Yeah, we'd be 20 feet apart for fire code, yeah. Because I'm sure there'll be some windows on the sides.
Okay. So you'll have blocks of 4 with
This is
20 feet.
this is just a rendering, this is not,
It's
yeah.
a guess.
Yeah.
That's gonna it'll be pretty close to that. I mean, unless we go a little bit bigger. on the
Well, Dia,
lot.
that's your point. What you're trying to make, I think, is my concern, and that is that the roads that we have out in Dove Crossing are pretty small right now. This all looks much smaller than that, and so I don't know how. I mean, traffic, people coming in and out seems to be a problem to me. I don't know how long the driveways are expected to be, but if we're doing sidewalks, the cars will be over the sidewalks, and that means kids will be back in the roadway with how small these are, and so that's concerning. I don't know how much land Navasota has for people to purchase, to do new developments, but I feel like we're just getting, we're just getting the cookie cutter developments, and I understand the cost, I understand your perspective, it makes perfect sense. But for people who are gonna live here for, hundreds of years potentially, just coming in and putting straight streets and houses right next to each other doesn't really fit what my vision of our community is. I certainly want people to come here and to purchase places, and they seem to be a little more affordable. But I also want us to think about, what does that person that's buying that property get when moving to Navasota? Clearly, they can move to College Station and get the exact same thing. I mean, we have something different to offer than College Station does, except we're keep building the same stuff that they have up there. Is my
Seems like to me that we're recruiting like a transient population. Move in, move out, by continuing to create small, and I say, 1,200 places, and, come in, they're nice married couple, then they have a baby, and they got to go. It just seems like, and then, you look at the newly built houses there, they're not selling for what the price is, and they keep reducing the prices out there. I'm a little bit concerned. I love the idea of the town. But I'm not doing it.
But that's where the need is, the need for people that are downsizing.
Yeah.
The family has moved on type thing, and they're sitting there with a 5-bedroom house and 2 people knocking around in it. And, yeah, or one, especially the one.
I think you're right, but I think those people are also looking for the ability to get out and walk the sidewalk and be able to go do what they need to do as an elderly couple, or as a just, newly married that's teaching at the high school. I don't know that they want to get out and walk in the street, and then if they have kids, there's no room to play here. But what happens, kids play right in front of their house. So whether there's a park 20 feet away or 5 miles away, it's right in front of the house. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, but the need though is there, and I don't know, without putting restrictions on it, make it another 42 place or something like that.
Yeah, those are, 42 places, they're spread further apart over there. There's
Right.
areas in between them. It's really nice.
Yeah, that's when land was a whole lot cheaper.
The development costs weren't what they are.
Can't do that today. You gotta be realistic on both sides.
We keep talking. She was a single person. She couldn't use this. But we turned one of the for her and children. We had to move her. Houston, there was not that much traffic. And it was practically all
I think
I know.
I think the vehicle space is still like sort of an issue. I mean, if you're gonna have a birthday party and have,
they both-
6 other families around, you're gonna have to ask your neighbors if you can park them in, because there's literally no extra space. And that doesn't have so much to do with your development plan, but the fact is we've got one road in, one road out, nothing on the periphery of it, not 3 lanes coming in and something going through the middle where, one of those 20-foot spots could be a narrow alleyway out to another street that could be utilized for parking on one side or something like that.
Yeah, it is an isolated area type thing where, you're,
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, once we get a survey and understand exactly how much room we have, that's something that we look at. Some other cities do require that, and that's something that if we can get the room and make it work with the number of units that we need to have to make the project work, then we'll definitely build that into the PUD.
The last couple of developers we've had, the same words. We're doing this for city employees, teachers, and everything. And so it's like, is that, just one of the standard things to make it feel better?
No, that's actually what I hear all over the state, is that
It's where the
people
need
that
is, dear.
the people that are in those positions,
Where the need is.
that are people in those positions, in those demographics all over the state can't afford a home right now. They can't afford
I
it.
just don't wanna hear,
I mean, if you-
Oh, I'm telling you that all over the state,
yeah.
that's what we hear.
Right.
And everybody always says, lots of cities say, we need that, and then, a plan comes in, and then it's like, well, but they could be more expensive. I mean, everything that gets said makes it more expensive. So then the demographic that we're told we need to provide homes for, we can't. And
And there's
so,
quite a few people that are living in College Station in a very similar type of layout, that left Navasota because we didn't have something like that here.
Right.
that too.
I think the aesthetics and things about the parking can be worked out. I think that shouldn't be a blocking point, I don't think.
I mean, some townhomes.
I mean, if anything, one of the things we can definitely look at, I mean, we got a nice park right across the street. I mean, we could look at putting some, expanding the parking lot directly across from there also. It's not being utilized.
And then, like,
You know, if he hadn't done all this research, we wouldn't be having this meeting, so he knows what he wants to do here. He's run the traps on the market, the area, what he can plug in there and what he can, his market rate, and the people are gonna buy the stuff. So, it's kinda, I know we ask a lot of questions, but he's the one that's taking the risk right there, so.
we talked about the teaching being one area next. We have a project and all that where loading docks served as part of the teaching. Would that be visible or not at all, where the teaching costs would be double as long as it's full, as a parking area?
It's not typical, because,
I mean, I'm just
yeah.
asking because you did that a couple weeks ago, or this last week. I'm just throwing that.
Oh, yeah, no, I appreciate the active use of space, but that's not something that, because I'm also a civil engineer, and so that's not something that you typically do.
We're glad you are.
I think that I will say again, I appreciate what you're doing. I think that we do need them, yes. I think we have a lot of houses in the 200s that are for sale now that are not being sold. And so I don't know how affordable that is to other people. I mean, if you look at Zillow today, there was 15 houses that had been reduced, in cost by $9,000. So I don't know if this is affordable or not.
But those are single families though, those are not townhomes.
And then the draw of the townhome is you can have those maintenance.
Yeah, so I totally agree with all that. My concern is still parking and sidewalks. And I don't know where sidewalks go, and we hadn't really talked about them. I assume that we're gonna require them, or he can pay the fee in lieu of, and then you put your kids or elderly in the street. That's my concern.
Yeah, the width you see, those blue line, horizontal lines, that's the width of a standard right-of-way in Navasota, 50 feet.
Does it have
It will, yes.
Todd asked a question here a few minutes ago, Lupe, about what part would be the city and what part would be the county. Can you, I think that you had
Oh, the
showed
city
it up there,
limits.
but you didn't show it to us.
Here's the property in question, the 7 acres, that kind of dry or yellow grass area. And then the pink line is the city limits. And so as part of the development process, in order to get approved, this must first be annexed and then zoned to accommodate the development. And all that has to happen, obviously before or shortly after the developer closes on the land. And that's what we were referencing, is he's willing to go a certain way, and then close on the property and then present it to council for final approval.
And does
But
that,
currently, it's outside the city limits.
does that become a big problem, like for where you would have to run lines? Do you have to get county easement and stuff like that? Or are you already close enough to city lines that you can just connect right to it?
Yeah, so show them where the line is, right? at the
Yeah, so
corner.
there is a water line that runs here. But there potentially, it all depends on, I'm sure Philip will dive into this when he gets on the design side, but yes, potentially there'll have to be some easements done, and water, utilities, those can be outside the city limits if they're running in easements. What matters is where the actual development is, and that can just be something that he'll have to negotiate with the county if he's gonna need to run mains on this corner, or if he's just gonna keep them in city right away and run around.
Further south?
It's
The county's
gonna be.
told me verbally they would give us easements along the east boundary in order, because the utilities dead end at the northeast corner right there, water and sewer. I have to go upsize that water line because it's not big enough, and I'm gonna have to lower some of the gravity sewer. But from that point to the south, the county's told me they would give us necessary easements. They don't have anything over there that's in the way.
In your planning, are you planning on doing something to the street from 105 to the townhomes?
That's
Because
not
it's kind of narrow, you know.
That's not in plan, right, I'm sure, absolutely it's narrow, yeah. I don't have any intentions to do anything to that unless it was required.
It's something the city definitely, Lupe and I and Public Works will definitely look at in the future. Do traffic counts and stuff like that, see if it needs to be placed on a plan in the future. Ideally, we're waiting.
Since it leads to county facilities, they ought to get the county to help too.
Yeah, that, and the main thing is, can you go to the other development that hasn't been presented to us yet or anything, but where's Stacy's property at on the map?
Wasn't it like down, oh, okay, it's even further that way.
Is it that piece? Yeah, so that piece there at some point is probably gonna be developed, and there'll be an entrance on both sides. So once that starts getting developed, we'll definitely need to look at Veterans Memorial Drive, the entire street.
Yeah, road widths are all dependent on trip count. And so 64 townhomes is not going to be a significant impact to the roadway. If it was 600 houses, that's where you start getting into, you need to widen the road. And so that'll be reviewed when the full project is submitted by our third-party engineer and staff. And so that'll be determined at that time. But just from the bird's eye view, we don't think 64 townhomes would create a significant traffic impact.
But once that other development happens, we definitely will have to do something.
Are you saying significant traffic impact, meaning that the city's not going to spend money to improve a road that's basically a private drive?
What I'm saying is that there's formulas that a house or a townhome creates a significant daily trip count, and that daily trip count determines the width of the road. And so once we get the final figure, if it's going to be 64 units or if it's going to be 50 units, right, once the road design is laid out, he may lose a building or two. That'll determine the trip count, which will tell us what the ideal width of the road is. And so it may say that road is not adequate and something has to be done, but it may not. So that'll be reviewed by our third-party engineer as well.
Is there regulation that says if there's that much traffic that the road has to be made that size? Or is it just, it should be that size?
So in transportation engineering, which is not my specialty, they have different levels of service that once it's, A, B, C, D, E, F, and I think once you get below D, then they start requiring different studies that go into lights and widening of roads and things like that.
I'm just looking at what requirements are. If you hit that threshold and we have a requirement, I'm looking at just that limited people having money funneled to them, particularly for a street that is almost a private drive when we have a lot of other road issues, and that we're forced to do that because we've hit that threshold, and we can't push that cost onto you, and then you would say, well, now it's not worth the development
Right.
because it's going to cost a bunch of money for this road.
As Lupe was saying, the 64 lots would not trigger one of those levels of service to be that high. So I probably won't have that problem.
You gotta build them out and
block 1 and block 2 in phases in a way. It's not, you're not gonna throw down 64 of them at once.
Right, we would do one road and then the second road, 2 phases.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm planning right now.
Do we know what the county, I mean, is y'all mentioned that the county is trying to settle the existing buildings that are there? The St. John's and Port Alabama? Because I've heard that rumor a couple times, that it's gonna be expanded up there, that they want to move it.
Wow.
I'm not, I mean, nothing's been said.
Yeah, I don't think so, because you got two commissioners that,
Right.
yeah, they've got to be in this area, so.
And the JP and.
Talking about it, especially with the new justice center, so I don't know. But you're right, I mean,
It would just be a rumor at this point.
okay.
So just to ask about the traffic study and what would trigger that, is it just based on the units, or is it based on vehicles that would be per unit? And would a count include whatever may happen at the soccer fields? And so whenever that season is in, it quadruples the number of cars that are on that roadway? Or do you just take that number out and only think about the 64 units?
So if a traffic impact analysis was required, it would look at it holistically. So it would look at what surrounding facilities are, what their daily trip count is, and then what the townhomes would be. So I think the reason I know this from memory is because we were dealing with it recently. I think townhomes are like 7 trips a day on average in and out of your house, versus a single family home is 10 trips a day. So it's interesting where that extra 3 trips comes from. Maybe one is to go get gas for your mower, because you have to mow in one versus the other, but that is the average, right? And so if a traffic impact analysis is justified or warranted because, the number comes out really high, then they'll look at everything, the whole street. And to answer your question earlier, Todd, about the requirements, let's assume that this was a 600 lot or 700 lot development. If the traffic analysis said that a road needed to be widened to a collector or a minor collector, then that requirement would be placed on the developer. The city, unless the city, or for whatever economic development purposes, the city and county and other entities wanted to participate, that's a different deal. But generally, any upsizing of infrastructure to serve that project, it has to be by the developer, at the developer's cost. So it's just going to depend on if it's warranted, right? Is widening the street warranted or not? If it is, as Philip said, it might not be feasible. But if it's not, then there wouldn't be any impact.
And that's determined by our engineer.
Correct.
So is all that study done?
Then Stacy has to deal with it.
Well, yeah, yes, but it's based on coming up to that Stacy's property. So the engineer would have to look and see, did that development create additional for his development? And so you might get half of the road that needs to be fixed, but not the rest of it. So.
And then on the, can you help me understand a little bit about this pricing that you've got this street?
Are you referring to number 4, Kadia?
Yes.
So number 4, again, we did a rudimentary calculation based on 64 lots, right? So the developer is proposing 64 residential lots. And so it is considered multifamily since they are attached to other units. And so the ordinance requires that for every 52 dwelling units in a multifamily development, 1 acre of parkland is required. And so when you take that calculation and apply it to 64 that he's proposing, it turns out a 1.23 acre requirement for parkland. And so the developer has an option, 2 options. Option 1 is to develop a small pocket park of 1.23 acres, or pay fees in lieu of the land that would have been dedicated to the city, and another fee for the developments that would have been put on top of that land, right? So slides, jungle gyms, etc. And so the fee is calculated in two formats. The land, which is the first fee of $153,000, and the development fee for the improvements on that land for $20,000. And the land fee, if you can see, it's based on the average cost of an acre on the project. So obviously this is rudimentary. I went based off of what the appraisal district currently has it listed as, at $125,000 an acre. I don't know, that's Philip's business, not getting his pocket. That'll be separate down the road, what it's appraised at, that will determine that fee.
Keeping those covered. $125,000 acres?
No, that's only for this development, what's on the development.
Yeah, that's based on,
Within the
so
boundaries.
based on the asking price of the property is what, is the way Lupe came into, because I think it was right at 900 to $1 million they were asking for it, and you divide it by the 7 acres, that's where he's getting the 125.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that that's what it is, correct.
In a situation like this, how would the trash service work? Would it have separate bins, or would they have like a dumpster that people would take their stuff to?
I think that circle drive is gonna accommodate a trash truck, right?
Right, yeah, the plan is to do individual bins, and then the drive that'll go on the east side will allow access for them to loop around, so they're not trying to back into driveways and whatnot.
Where would they store the bins?
Garage.
In the garage.
HOA require that.
In the garage?
Or behind the house, whatever.
It'll fit through the gate? They'd be able to take it to the back?
The middle units would have to go to the garage for sure. The outer ones could go to the
Have
back
a lot
if they
of poo-poo
wanted to.
diapers in the garage, and the heat's not ideal.
Right.
I don't have that yet.
But that's how big is
It's not very big, 30 by 30, something like that.
Yeah.
You get a weed eater,
Yeah.
and you weed eat it.
And you probably wouldn't even have all of that overgrown with grass, you'd probably have a patio.
I know a lot of people that'll like that.
Yeah.
An example is the little, development out there on Ivy Street, where you have the townhouses, and the backyard is about as big as this area here from Todd to the wall, and from that up to the counter.
Are they privacy?
Haven't quite gotten that far yet. It kind of depends on what we kind of work out with the builder. Some of them that we've seen have just wrought iron in the back, so it kind of gives it a, more open feel, but haven't quite gotten that far yet.
The one question here, I know you've got a lot of questions tonight, you probably didn't even
No,
get
go ahead.
prepared for, but,
That's why I'm here.
Since the park is gonna be right across the street from these townhomes, are you gonna pay in lieu of green space, or are you gonna have green space, or you're not that poor yet?
It doesn't make a lot of sense to, especially, y'all heard the list price, right? So it makes more sense to put homes on this lane than to build a park, especially whenever there's 75 acres across the street for plenty of park.
Yeah.
And so, I do not intend to put a park on this site.
So you'll be looking at in lieu of.
In lieu, yes, right.
One.
And now, sorry, you may have said this, and I'm sorry if I missed it. Where's the mailbox cluster proposed?
It's not shown here, this is a pretty early on drawing, but it would be along Veterans Memorial, because I've got to have homes 30 feet off of the property line anyways, plus that's the main road, and so probably somewhere along there.
Yeah, I was just thinking that if there was a way in the middle to make a cut through, like that was a road as opposed to a whole block, then your cluster mailbox maybe go in there, but you probably lose too many lots if you put it in the middle. Yeah.
Right.
If you're looping that road in there, are you gonna be staggering the units?
No, the idea is efficiency, and so,
Yeah.
that's what it's all about, to get to, affordable product.
So does that mean somebody backs out into the across the street neighbor's driveway? I mean, like this driveway to driveway, driveway to
Right,
driveway?
which, that happens in a lot of neighborhoods. This wouldn't be unique.
It may happen in a lot of neighborhoods, but I know that it sometimes helps and sometimes hurts how people back out of their driveways. So
Right.
that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's new to Navasota, that type thing.
Yeah, because I think most of ours are offset.
I'm trying to think what Ruth Court, are they back to that?
Yeah, typically your driveways are they're positioned on the high side of the lot, and so if I'm across the street, we have the same high side, so our driveways are gonna typically be aligned.
What you call a mailbox and tore it up.
No, over there in Con Lakes, it's driveway to driveway. Now, you go over on Links and it's that way, but Bunker,
They're
Bogey,
offset, yeah.
Putter Place, Ace, Caddy, Freewood, they're all directly across from each other. Masters is that way too. St. Andrew.
Are those streets wider than this or anything?
Philip, you mentioned this is a 50-foot right-of-way, right, between the blue lines, and so a standard 28-foot back of curb residential street would fit in there, which would be exactly the same as like Pecan Lakes.
Why does it feel more like Dove Crossing, Dove Court, kind of that size? I'm getting the wrong feeling.
I think it's kind of, it plays like a trick on your eyes because of the fact that they are 30-foot wide lots, but they're not, house. It's one big block, and they just share that property line inside of the building. So it kind of plays on your eyes a bit to make it look more congested than it actually is.
You want a better rendering so that you can visualize it than what you're looking at
I'm ready for you
there.
to say, let's go, let's get it done.
That's what I'm looking for.
I know. But then I'm also skeptical, because I'm like, yeah, we've heard kind of this before, and it didn't go as planned.
You heard geodesic domes, or you heard townhomes?
We've heard a lot. Houses specifically for teachers on NISD land, and we could rent them out to people. That'd be
The
fun.
domes weren't,
He's not asking us to rent anything.
I'm not
get it.
nearly that creative.
I get it.
Well, I think
The domes were not
requirement of the
geodesic.
HOA is a really good thing, because
Well,
that'll deal with a lot of things, and that'll keep, him as the developer.
there's always been a lot of discussion about ownership versus rental, at least coming to our meetings in the past couple of rounds. How are we, when we're doing things, but you can't stop somebody that's got $500,000, $10 million to come in and buy 3 strips of that and rent it all out. We can't stop that, so you got to think about that too. I mean, because it would be a good investment for a property person to come in and buy it 2-3 quads of that and do that. So but we can't stop.
But again, the HOA would be a good filter, I guess, for.
Yeah, I know there are laws against that. So like who you can, as far as prohibiting any specific type of buyer. So we have to just be careful of that, because if it's allowed, it's allowed.
Market.
Market, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Market runs it.
So Council PZ, so what I kind of heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, so concerns about traffic, so you want us to kind of work with him on the traffic traffic issues, parking, and sidewalks. Todd, I know that you're all on for drainage. He mentioned about trying to do possible drainage on the north and south maybe, or just on the south.
Something.
Do you, any?
I haven't walked the field yet,
Okay.
so I can't really say
Okay.
how I like it.
Okay, okay. I just didn't know if off the top.
No, I mean, at least when you're in the wide open space like that, he gets first dibs on holding and releasing his water, so,
Okay.
we'll be a little tougher on the person that comes into the property beside him than that one.
All right, just,
What about when you said drive on from the hot side? That kind of work.
That just means if the road, if you're driving down the road like this, people's drive, and the house is sitting here, the driveways go on the high side of the road, high side of the lot.
Okay.
So that,
So
otherwise,
it's not gonna drain into the house?
no.
Directly opposite of that.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
In the street, just like it does in town, that's
Okay.
what the street is for drainage, yeah.
I'm a much better civil engineer than that, I promise.
But I appreciate your concern with water flow and drainage.
You should see me driving around town in these flash floods to look at the properties that we allow.
Yeah. Any other concerns that we need to work with him on? Again, the plan, if I'm not mistaken, is to bring this to P and Z in the future, very near future, and then wait, and then we'll come to council after the closing is the plan. So,
One other thought, Jason, is I was just thinking since the road is going to be a little bit narrow, and you've got a vehicle parked, a dually truck parked on the road, fire truck, ambulance can get through.
So, it's still the city standard roadway.
It's going to be a standard roadway?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not proposing anything narrower.
Okay.
And of course, once you get a little more, when you get engineered
Right.
drawings, there probably could be some more opportunity to discuss a lot of these kind of things, maybe.
Yeah, like Josh said.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's one of the things.
Real preliminary.
Well,
Park in the county's parking lot.
Kenny, it's not, I'm sorry, Mr. Stevens, it's not necessarily
Put a gate there.
because they come to us complaining about that they don't have parking. So then it, or the police get called because of that.
So I really think right there on our property, the city's property there, he talked about doing a crosswalk across there. That'd be a great location, and extending our parking there will add some additional parking, potentially. So, any other concerns, questions?
A little out there, you're right. Yeah. You see this drawing? It's terrible.
Well, it is.
I've got a lot of work to do. Yeah.
You got it on yours?
I would love it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank y'all for this. Like I said, hopefully we'll be able to do these a little bit more often. That way, when we have projects like this, where we all can get together and get all on the same page and iron out stuff, so that we can get everything moving forward a little faster and quicker. Mayor, I have no other item. Lupe, you got anything for your board?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.